Thank you guys for the subscribers. We just hit 1K a day ago, and now we're on 1.4K. We're flying to 2K quickly. Next thing you know, we're gonna get 10, man. But we have to keep up the good work, and please keep interacting, man. I'm loving the comment section. I'm loving what you guys have feedback, the positive, the negative. Just be honest, man. It's a community we're trying to build, so we just wanna the real life comments. But yeah, you got anything to say?
Um, Nothing much. I'm just intrigued by the title, bro. You know,
Yeah,
13-year-old wrongly sentenced to die.
unbelievable.
How can you wrongly sentence a kid? How does that
13-year-old,
how does that work, Mike?
black or white, it doesn't matter. That's sickening.
Fam, if this is correct, yeah, I hope the judge gets gets sentenced as well because there's no way you can get that wrong, bro. A child? Come on now.
Disgusting.
Yeah, but yeah, make sure to subscribe. Smash this like button, guys. Enough talking. Let's go.
People does not discriminate, and it never has. From slavery to present day, there has never been a safe place or escape or hiding spot for black people from injustice. Whether you are male or female, young or old, it did not and does not matter. In this video, I want to tell you a story that highlights how vicious injustice and Jim Crow was in going after black women and girls. I'm going to tell you a story about a little black girl that suffered so much for something that everyone knew that she did not do. Before I get into this story, I have to give you some historical context first. This is important to understand how Jim Crow was relentless in his quest to demonize and harm black girls and black women. So give me a few moments to talk about this, and then I'll tell you about what happened to this black child. I want to give you some startling figures first. Between 1880 and 1930, lynch mobs took the lives of at least 130 black women.
Wow.
And countless more black women and girls were tortured, mutilated, tarred and feathered, fired at, burned, stabbed, dragged, whipped, or violated by mobs all across the South. Black women and girls were afforded no respect or dignity or due process. Their gender did not exclude them from the horrors of racism and injustice. Despite this false image that Hollywood often portrayed of the loving black mammy, cook, and nursemaid, that's not how black women and girls were seen in the days after emancipation. Black women were seen as dangerous and conniving. As early as 1865, white newspapers began to depict and write about black women as being ignorant and depraved. Papers highlighted stories of black women accused of harming white people, and black women became the subject of white hysteria about black criminality. And of course, this led to the belief that lynching black women and girls and subjecting them to harsh criminal punishment was justified. Negative images only helped to feed this media frenzy to demonize black women and girls and to subject them to legal executions and mob lynchings. Take a look at this image that appeared in a September 1867 issue of Harper's Weekly magazine.
That's
It's
sickening.
titled "Whipping a Negro
Disgusting.
Girl." In this
Whipping a
image, you
Negro
see
girl.
the entire community come together to beat a black woman. Here's another from 1878. It was supposed to show black women arguing and fighting outside a saloon. These images and news stories all serve to demonize black women and girls, to strip them of their femininity, and to portray them as being just as dangerous as black men. All of this ensured that when a black female was accused of a crime, there would be no sympathy for her. This translated into the criminal justice system. Margaret Harris was hanged in front of 5,000 people in 1882 after being convicted of allegedly taking the life of a white infant. In 1892, a 13-year-old mentally delayed child named Milby Brown was hanged after being sentenced to die for allegedly poisoning a white child. By the 1890s, the
And the thing is, Mike, a lot of these things these people have have been were convicted for. There's probably no evidence. It was because I heard that that a lot of those the slaves back then were wrongly convicted, based off of conviction, bro. I mean, based off of like just feelings. If a white person felt like this person was guilty, they don't even need evidence. They can just say, yeah, he's guilty and he should be sentenced to death.
Yeah, bro.
Which is insane.
There was no justice. There's no nothing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the lawyers of back then were not going to be on the side of a black person, man. So
It's absolutely insane.
Of black women and the creation of this mythological monstrous black woman had taken hold of Southern imaginations. In 1891, the Louisville Courier-Journal ran a story with the headline, "Feast of Human Flesh." the body of a child sold for meat by an inhumane mother. It was about a black woman who allegedly took her child's life and sold her flesh and called it tender. Articles like this continue to confirm whites' beliefs that black women were dangerous and whites needed to be protected from black women.
Which is
Black
probably a
women
lie.
became known as mammies who took the lives of white children that they cared for, poisoned white families, stole, and set their employers' homes on fire. Over 40 black women were lynched in the 1890s.
What?
Crimes ranged from taking the life of a white person to stealing a Bible. It was this climate that Mary Booth found herself in when Jim Crow came looking for her. Mary Booth was born in 1868 to Harriet and Benjamin Booth. She was one of 8 children. Mary and her siblings did not attend school. Like many black people during that time, fresh into emancipation, black children worked outside the home to help support their families. In 1882, she was 13 years old and worked for the family of Clara and Reuben Gray at Mount Pleasant Plantation in Surry County, Virginia. That was a majority black county in the southeastern part of Virginia. Mary worked there with her mother Harriet and her older sister Virginia. Clara Gray and her husband had moved to Virginia a few years before. Clara was originally from New York and Reuben was from Chicago and was the son of the former mayor of Chicago. The two had met in Colorado where Reuben pursued a career in mining and Clara was an investor. They then moved to Virginia to take on the life of Southern planters. This desire for continued reinvention should have been a sign that there was something really wrong with this family. Mary worked as a cook and as a nurse for the
This
family.
guy's a really good narrator, by
Nurse
the
is
way.
just another name for
This guy's an unbelievable narrator.
Oh yeah, he is, bro. He is. Yeah, let's-
His storytelling is great.
Yep.
a sign that there was something really wrong with this family. Mary worked as a cook and as a nurse for the family. Nurse is just another name for a child caretaker. This was a position that many young black girls who worked outside the home had. This led to them being treated less like the children that they were and more like adults who were responsible for caring for white children. This meant that black children like Mary would not be granted the same youthful and innocent status of the white children that they were caring for. On April 7th, 1882, Clara Gray and the overseer of the plantation, Travis Jones, both died suddenly. It's believed that they had been poisoned. A few days after their deaths, the police arrested Mary Booth and another black female who worked at the plantation named Martha Jones. The white press had a field day with this story.
This is the problem, bro. The problem with some white people, yeah, they have this stereotype of blacks. They have this these connotations, these belief systems about black people, you know. And so even if there's no evidence, you know, especially back then when, you know, black people had barely any rights, you know, just like what I said, all they needed is all they need to say is, I feel like this person did it, you know. I feel like they are guilty. And if they say that, that's enough. You see what I'm saying? They don't need to present any evidence, because I don't even think there's any evidence for all of this stuff, right? There's no evidence. So it's just off of suspicion, off of feelings, which is insane, you know? And it makes sense how this 13-year-old, you know, could have been wrongly sentenced, because when you're going off of feelings, when you're going off of suspicion with no evidence, you could easily sentence someone wrongfully, bro, right? So
They wasted no time. And another black female who worked at the plantation named Martha Jones. The white press had a field day with this story. They wasted no time in portraying Martha and Mary as villainous black women. Papers from all across the country picked the story up. They harped on their blackness and their youth as the primary reason for this horrific event. As the weeks went on, the focus shifted to Mary being the person responsible for this alleged crime. Mary's older sister, 15-year-old Virginia, she was also arrested and charged with being involved. On May 24th, 1882, both Mary and Virginia were both brought to the court for arraignment and charged with the deaths of Clara Gray and Travis Jones. After being arraigned, Mary and Virginia were placed in the Surry County Jail. The mood was so tense in the area that there were talks of lynching these two girls. And this was a real fear that I'm sure Mary and Virginia both thought about as they spent nights and weeks and months awaiting trial.
this breaks my
Would
heart,
they
man.
be taken from the jail like so many black people had before and lynched before their trial even began? And we also have to remember that these were two little girls. They were children sitting in the county jail awaiting trial for a crime that black people did not escape. They were not taken to a juvenile facility because the juvenile court system had not been created yet. They were sitting in an adult jail. I can only imagine the terror and confusion they felt. This was a nightmare that no child could imagine, and for them, it was real, and they did not wake up from it. Judge R.W. Arnold presided over the trial. Here's what I found most interesting about the trial. There were black people who made it onto the jury. The jury had 8 black men on it. Now, remember, this was still just a few years after the Civil War and after emancipation, so none of them could read or write. The sisters were represented by attorney R.E. Boykin. For the prosecution, the state had help. Reuben Gray, Clara's husband, he hired attorneys to help prosecute the case for the state. He wanted to make sure that Mary and Virginia took the fall for this crime. Even though attorney Boykin filed motions and did his best to represent the girls, he was simply outmatched. Records from the trial are no longer present, but here's what research about the case was able to uncover. Mary was tried first. There were no eyewitnesses to testify about what happened. And even though newspapers claimed that the girls confessed, that was not true. Neither girl confessed. And in fact, they both denied having anything to do with the deaths. Mary endured a very long trial. The state called more than 20 witnesses in its quest to convict Mary. Attorney Boykin did not call Mary to testify in her own defense. Now, this was not uncommon in Virginia back then. Virginia did not give people accused of crimes the right to testify until 1886. So Mary might have been prevented from testifying in her own defense. One of the theories presented by the prosecution was that Virginia and Mary committed the crime because they wanted to steal money that was hidden in the house. And it was their desire for money that led them to come up with a plan to poison the family. Poisoning the white families by black cooks.
Even that story does not make sense, bro, right, Mike? Does that make sense? I feel like they were just finding excuses, bro, to just kill these innocent girls, bro.
Honestly.
That's what they were just making excuses. It's very clear to see. You know, it's very clear to see.
Fear amongst middle-class whites. Almost all well-to-do white people had a black cook, and the fear from slavery that black servants would poison them did not end with emancipation. There are countless stories of black women and girls being executed and lynched on suspicion that they poisoned the white family that they worked for.
Suspicion,
many times, these
not
allegations
evidence.
were based on pure speculation. After hearing the evidence, the jury went to deliberate.
See, these are key words, bro. Speculation. Speculation.
Terrible, bro.
You know? Not evidence, speculation.
The white family that they worked for. Many times, these allegations were based on pure speculation. After hearing the evidence, the jury went to deliberate. Even though Mary did not get to testify in her own defense, not all of the jurors were convinced of her guilt. There was one holdout who did not.
Yep.
Imagine how the girls were feeling in the trial.
Them-
Like a
yeah.
13 and 15-year-old being on trial, they must have felt like sick, man. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on, honestly?
And especially as well, you know, being a black person during that period, bro. You know that, you know, for the most part, you've got no chance.
Got no chance, so they probably had
You know.
pray, but there was not much they could have done, man.
Yeah, the only hope was praying. That's it. You know, everything was.
At least now we're seeing this story and we're learning about it, which is
Yeah.
part of the history.
Yep. You know.
Not all of the jurors were convinced of her guilt. There was one holdout who did not believe that Mary committed the crime and refused to vote for conviction. Finally, after pressuring that jury to change their vote, on June 30th, 1882, the jury returned its verdict. It unanimously found Mary Booth guilty of taking the life of Clara Gray. Judge Arnold immediately sentenced Mary to die by hanging on November 17th, 1882. Mary was to suffer a similar fate as other black girls who have been accused of similar crimes. As for Virginia, it's not clear what happened to her. Records indicate that her trial was continued for a later date, and for reasons unknown, she was later released and the prosecution against her was dropped. You have to wonder what exactly happened in the jury deliberations. Why did one juror hold out initially and refuse to vote guilty? Were the jurors pressured to vote one way because of intimidation or because of threats? Remember, there were 8 black men on this jury. Did they all really believe that this black child had committed this horrific crime for no apparent reason? We don't know exactly what happened during deliberations, but what happened after the verdict does give us some insight into the jurors' thinking on Mary's involvement in the deaths. Almost immediately after the verdict and Mary being sentenced to die, every single juror signed a petition to Governor William E. Cameron recommending that he take action and grant Mary clemency and spare her the death sentence she received and instead give her life in prison. Mary's attorney, R.E. Boykin, he also kept fighting to free Mary. He filed a clemency appeal to the governor on her behalf. This is the actual clemency appeal that Attorney Boykin filed in 1882.
Wow.
In the appeal, he wrote that Mary was a poor Negro girl who was 13 years old. He said that she did not have money to pay for a lawyer to appeal her case to try to reverse her conviction. He also said that Mary was innocent of the crime and the evidence was circumstantial against her. And
Where would she even get the poison from?
And Judge Arnold.
What'd you say?
Where would she even get the poison from, bro?
Yes, exactly, bro. You know, I mean, the whole thing doesn't make sense to me, bro. Doesn't make sense. You know, for me, the vibe I'm getting, you know, maybe I'm making a conclusion too early. The vibe I'm getting is, you know, they're just looking for an excuse to go kill an innocent girl, bro.
A stitch up.
You know, that's what they're looking for.
Of the crime and the evidence was circumstantial against her, and she should be spared the death sentence. And Judge Arnold.
And also, sorry for pausing video, guys. I know, yes, we're interrupting a lot. It's just that we're very passionate about stuff like this. Did they do like an autopsy on the victims, the so-called victims, like, because that should give, you know, that should explain the cause of death, right? Innit, Mike?
It's 1986, bro.
What, did autopsy not exist back then?
It's 1886. They probably didn't do that, bro.
You sure? I mean, maybe we'll know later. You know, the people in the comments will let us know.
Of the crime and the evidence was circumstantial against her, and she should be spared the death sentence. And Judge Arnold, who sentenced her to death, he also wrote to the governor on Mary's behalf. He said that the ends of justice will be met by commuting Mary's sentence to life in prison. He said that Mary's age and youthful appearance were the reasons for his decision to write the governor. After Mary was convicted and sentenced to death, she remained at the Surrey County Jail for months, awaiting her execution. She remained there without her sister and no parents. No loved ones to tend to her. She was a 13-year-old child in an adult county jail, waiting to be executed for something that she did not do. I can only imagine the fear and terror that she must have felt. And despite pleas for help and commutation, help did not come. Mary's attorney's request to the governor was denied. It looked like Mary would be executed. As her execution date approached, plans began to take shape to carry out her sentence. A crew began constructing the gallows that Mary would be hung at. And what's worse is that Mary saw them building it. The execution platform that would be used to execute her was less than 2 feet beneath her jail window.
Oh my.
Remember, this is a child witnessing this, not some hardened criminal. This was a 13-year-old child watching plans being made to take...
Fam, I'm pausing it a lot, bro. It's just... that's pure evil, bro. I feel like they did it on purpose by building the execution chamber right in front of her face. I feel like they're doing it on purpose, right, Mike? It's to make it even more scary for her, bro.
It's disgusting.
Like, why? Why are human beings like this, bro?
This is a child witnessing this, not some hardened criminal. This was a 13-year-old child watching plans being made to take her life. Because Mary was so small, a special coffin had to be built just to accommodate her small body.
God.
And there was excitement around witnessing the execution of this child. Papers continued to report on the upcoming execution. People were traveling from far and wide to witness this barbaric act of injustice. They came on foot and on horseback to get a chance to witness this. One person even died in the rush to get there. A woman named Martha Spratley lost her life and her daughter was seriously injured when their cart was struck by another cart. Mary's father, Benjamin Booth, was among those that gathered to witness this event. But Benjamin did not come just to view the execution of his child. He came to rescue her. Benjamin had devised a plan to save Mary's life. On the day of the execution, Benjamin was going to wait for the sheriff to remove Mary from her jail cell. As Mary was being taken from the jail to the gallows outside, Benjamin would move in to try to take his little girl and get her to safety. It was a daring plan and it was dangerous, but Benjamin was willing to do it, even if it cost him his life.
Good dad.
But Benjamin never got to carry out his rescue plan because something happened that shocked everyone. Plans were underway to carry out Mary's execution. The gallows were built. The tiny coffin was ready. A minister named Bailey Wyatt was brought in to give Mary her last rites. He tried to get Mary to come clean about what she had done before being executed. He asked her 6 times in 6 different ways if she was guilty. But Mary maintained her innocence and said that she did not do this. On November 16, 1882, one day before Mary was set to be hanged, Virginia Governor William Cameron stayed her execution, and commuted her sentence to life in prison. The governor said that Mary's extreme youth and the entire jury that convicted her, recommending that she be given clemency, was the reason he was acting. To avoid Mary being lynched, the sheriff removed Mary from Surrey County Jail and took her to the state prison in Richmond. The situation was so dire that Mary was hurried out of the jail with extreme urgency. The sheriff told Mary to hurry up and grabbed her as she was rushed out. Mary, only 13 years old, was confused and complained that she needed to stop and tie her shoes first. The sheriff told Mary to hurry and that he would tie her shoes for her later. This is another example of her youth on display. The sheriff was trying to save her from a lynching, and Mary wanted to stop to make sure her shoes were properly tied.
Imagine,
People were
like,
not happy that Mary's
That's
sentence.
a kid right there, bro.
Honestly.
That's a kid, but even if she was guilty, I still don't think you should she deserves it, bro. Like, because I remember, like, when you're young, but like sometimes you can make irrational decisions. Like you can do things without thinking, bro. If she was an adult, that's completely different. This is a child we're talking about, you know. That's
This is a crazy story.
it's really
Not
sad.
hard to
bro.
watch, but it's madness, man.
Yeah, it's really sad, man.
Heartbreaking story.
Mary wanted to stop to make sure her shoes were properly tied. People were not happy that Mary's sentence had been commuted. Almost immediately after the governor issued his clemency order, officials in Surrey County said that they intended to prosecute Mary for the death of Travis Jones. They had previously closed this case after securing her conviction for Clara Gray's death. Now, they were going to reopen it to try to make sure that Mary got the death penalty once again. Mary arrived at the Virginia Penitentiary in Richmond on November 17, 1882. This is a copy of the logbook documenting Mary's entrance into the prison. When Mary entered the prison, she was far from the only black person there. There were 964 prisoners there. 83 of them were black females, and 114 of the inmates were black youth. One of them was even younger than Mary was. Roderick
Wow.
Ferguson was 9 years old, serving a 10-year
What?
sentence. This was a dangerous place for Mary, who was just turning 14 years old. This adult prison was full of horrors, from forced labor to physical abuse, to squalid conditions and poor sanitation that bred disease. It was a dangerous place for children there. They were subjected to unspeakable things. A 10-year-old boy named Thomas Nowlin died after he fell into a tub of boiling liquid. And we have to remember that Mary was a small, defenseless little girl who really could not protect herself in a place like this. Her age and size made her a prime target. In prison, there was no separation for small children like Mary from the adults and the hardened criminals.
Oh my God.
Mary would have been made to do the same work as the adults. She would have been made to sleep in the same cells and dorms as the adults. And she would have been subjected to the same punishments as the adults. And it wasn't just the physical conditions, but also the emotional toll that this took on Mary. She was a child in an adult prison, separated from her family during a time when her body likely would have been experiencing changes. She had no family member to help guide her through these changes. She had to rely on the compassion of other prisoners to explain to her what her body might have been experiencing. Mary should have died in prison, but once again, the unexpected happened. Benjamin Booth had already planned one rescue to save his daughter. Luckily for him and Mary, he was not able to go through with it. But this father was determined to save his little girl from an unjust fate that many wanted so desperately for her to suffer. Remember, it was Clara Gray and Travis Jones that died. Reuben Gray, Clara's husband, for some reason, did not consume the poison that his wife and Travis had. And also, for some strange reason, no one saw this as being suspicious. It should have been obvious that the husband was the prime suspect.
Yeah.
But this was the 1880s, just a few years out of slavery, and race was all that mattered. The fact that Mary was black was all that was needed to put and keep the focus on her for this crime.
Well, again, just like what I said, you
That
know,
was a good point.
yeah, you know, all they needed to say is, oh, this black girl did it, bro.
And then
They don't
remember
need any
what
evidence.
You remember what you said at the start, where they just thought black girls were ratchet. They tried to
Yeah,
kill their owners.
yeah,
I mean, the people that worked for them, because slavery was abolished by then. But yeah, so the black women had loads of stereotypes that they're terrible people. So the white justice system just assumed that the 13-year-old girl had done it
yep.
and didn't even really supply enough evidence and figure out what actually happened. They just put it on her.
Yeah,
Charged her for the terrible crime, and that's it.
yeah. You know, no evidence is required. You know, just you know, just say it was a black person that did it, and everyone will believe you. You know, that's a sad reality. I believe the people were going through back then. Mike, do you think you would have survived if you were born during that era?
It would have been tough, man. I would have had to be very strong-minded
Yeah.
and fight for my rights and just honestly, would have been a hard
I
time.
feel like
man.
with me, I would have been killed, but because I am very bad at taking orders. I hate taking orders. I don't like to
Be disrespected.
Nah, man, I don't like to be disrespected. I don't like to be told what to do. You know, I don't like to be controlled. I'm just that type of person, bro. So I don't think I would have survived. I would have either fam. You know, if you guys know me, man, you know what I'm talking about. But, you know.
In August of 1882, 3 months before Mary was to be hanged for the crime that Reuben Gray had paid to have her prosecuted for, Reuben took his own life. News reports claimed that he was suffering from grief, but that was far from the truth. There were rumors of infidelity between Clara and Reuben. If this were a 21st century episode of a crime show, Reuben would have been suspect number one. He had all the motive to carry out this crime, and Mary had none. She had no reason to poison Clara or Travis, and she certainly would have had no reason not to poison Reuben if her intent was to take out this entire family.
Exactly.
But like I said, Mary's arrest and prosecution was not about the truth. It was about race. The fact that she was a young black female made her an easy person to blame this entire incident on. But there was just one problem. There were many people in Surrey County who did not believe that Mary committed this crime. If you remember, all the jurors signed a petition to have Mary's sentence commuted. The judge who sentenced her to death also wrote to the governor and requested that her life be spared. But this was not enough because the governor rejected these requests and only spared Mary's life from being hanged at the last minute. Mary was to spend the rest of her life in prison. She was supposed to die there, and she would have died there had it not been for the continued fight of those who believed that she was truly innocent. After Reuben Gray took his life, the belief that he was the real perpetrator only intensified in Surrey County. People from all walks of life supported Mary being pardoned and released from prison. Benjamin Booth, Mary's father, he personally delivered a letter to Governor Cameron petitioning for his daughter to be released. But this letter was not just from him. It was from a host of supporters. It was signed by C.A. Jackson, who was the owner of a tobacco processing plant and might have been Benjamin's employer. The letter asked that the governor grant Mary clemency and pardon her. In the letter, Jackson wrote that the community now believed that Mary was innocent and it was Reuben Gray, not Mary Booth, that took Clara Gray and Travis Jones's lives. The letter was also signed by clerks of court, justices of the peace, attorneys, and Judge Arnold, who sentenced Mary to hang. They all came together to show their support for Mary and their belief that she was innocent. On Christmas Eve of 1885, Governor Cameron was at the end of his term in office. He pardoned Mary Booth. Injustice had caused Mary to spend years of her life in prison for a crime that she did not commit. But injustice did not take her life. And this was thanks to the continued fight of those who knew that Mary Booth was innocent. But I have to mention that Mary was not fully exonerated. The official reason for her pardon was mercy on account of her age, not the fact that she was wrongfully convicted.
Wow.
Saying that a black
They still don't admit that they were wrong, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? You were clearly wrong. You clearly or wrongfully convicted this girl. Just say it was a bad decision. You know,
Because they didn't want to look like a joke and siding with black people, so they just had to say, "Oh, it's because of her age."
yeah. I wonder how many black people were wrongly convicted.
Back then, there's still black
During this
people
period.
wrongly convicted.
Yes.
Convicted today. Bro.
Good point. You know, so it's still going on till this day, bro, which is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. You know, I think I remember even few weeks ago, I saw one guy that got released from prison. He was wrongfully convicted.
And they get millions. Millions is gonna get their life back.
Exactly. But what the hell is a million's gonna do? You've lost, you know, half your life. Like, what is it gonna do? It won't do anything. That's not justice.
black person was wrongfully convicted for the actions of a white person was a bridge too far for the governor and the white press in 1885. But nevertheless, Mary was freed from prison. But she wasn't free from the trauma that a false arrest, a rigged prosecution, a death sentence, a near lynching, and spending years as a child in an adult prison caused her. Records of what happened to Mary after her release are sparse.
Only God.
But here's what
It's only God that saved her, man. honestly.
Facts. I agree.
And
I
the help
agree.
from honest people that
Yeah.
clearly know that she was not guilty, bro.
Yeah. I think it was, it wouldn't surprise me if our family were praying a lot during that period. This is God's work, bro. This is God's work.
Research shows Mary continued to live in Surrey County. In 1890, she was around 22 years old. She married a 27-year-old farmer named Walker Charity.
Wow.
They did not stay married long. 5 years later, in 1895, Mary's husband filed for divorce. He claimed that Mary had left him and she was unfaithful and had committed adultery with several men. Mary left the state and was never heard from again. I don't believe that anyone should say anything about Mary's marriage to Walker, his allegations, or say anything negative about her, because it would not be fair. Mary was born in 1868, 3 years after the end of the Civil War and slavery. This was the beginning of a new chapter in American history, but it was also the beginning of the next chapter of injustice against black people. This was not a good time for black people. Jim Crow, segregation, black codes, convict leasing, lynching, and so many of the other horrors that black people face for the next century were born during this time. Now add on top of that a black child, 13 years old, who was arrested and convicted of taking the lives of 2 white people. She is then sentenced to hang. She's separated from her family while she awaits her execution. And at the last minute, her life is spared, but not really. Is spared to spend the rest of her life in prison with hardened adults. We don't know the horrors that Mary Booth experienced as a child in prison in the 1890s. We can't even begin to imagine what that was like. Prison is a violent and depressing place today. 130 years ago, it was 10 times worse, especially for a black person, especially for a 13-year-old black girl.
It's a good point that you provided context there, because people are very quick to jump into conclusion and start saying, oh, maybe she might even be guilty because, why would she cheat on her husband? Maybe she's, showing her true character, by cheating. But just like what this guy said, we don't know what she went through. She could have been traumatized. She could have been mentally damaged by the experience.
She could have been
raped, exactly, bro.
anything.
That's why it's not good to judge people. Like, get to know them first, get to know context,
Press in place today. 130 years ago, it was 10 times worse, especially for a black person, especially for a 13-year-old black girl. What kind of effect do you think that had on Mary Booth? Do you think that she came out like a regular teenager, ready to thrive in life? Do you think that she was ready to go off and be married and raise a family and live a normal life as if nothing had happened to her? That trauma and pain that she experienced, combined with the fact that she was re-entering a world that devalued her humanity because of the color of her skin, is a combination that would have been enough to make the strongest person crumble under the weight of what they had gone through.
Facts.
And Mary Booth was no different. That is what racism and injustice and all that flows from them do to a person. They rob their victims of normalcy. They keep them trapped in cycles of trauma. I want to know your thoughts on this story. Had you ever heard of Mary Booth, and how did it make you feel learning all that she went through? Leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts.
Yeah.
That's probably the best video we watched on this page, man. Very insightful.
Justice and
Yeah.
It's very, very emotional. Not really hard to listen to, but I'm happy that she had a positive outcome in the end, and she didn't have the death penalty. She got out. She got exonerated. It was probably hard to get her life back. She had to go and she married, but she was traumatized, man. So you have to feel for her, man.
Yep.
But yeah, what a story that was. What do you think of it?
Yeah. I think this video just painted a picture of what racism is, bro. Racism is toxic. It's one of the most toxic things, or one of the most poisonous things that has ever existed, bro. It's really bad. It's what it does, bro. It can make the innocent look like the perpetrators, the criminals, the ones that are evil, bro. It can paint a very bad picture of
A distasteful picture of someone, man.
yeah.
But,
It's what I'm saying.
yeah.
But great video, just like what Mike said, man.
Let us know what you
very
think of the
controversial.
story in the comments, man. Very controversial, like AB said. Go on.
Yeah, very controversial. I'm really interested in knowing your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know in the comments, guys. What's you guys' opinion on the story of maybe both, and also racism in general. Educate us in the comments. We really appreciate the support. Don't forget to like.
Also, if you want us
go
to
on.
react to more of this guy's videos, because that was very well narrated, please.
He has more videos
well.
on racism and that.
Yeah, a lot, man. He's a
Okay.
top creator, apparently.
Yeah, if you guys like, these type of reactions, man, just let us know in the comments. We really appreciate the support. Again,
Peace.
don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.